Hello class, welcome to this another video lecture. For this one, we will discuss the professional practice of accountancy. So for this video lecture, we will cover the following law affecting the practice of accountancy profession, which is the Republic Act 9298 or the Philippine Accountancy Act of 2004. So that is why we will cover the law itself. So RA 9298, so this one, as well as its implementing rules and regulations, RA 9298. So to be implemented by BOA rather, Professional Regulatory Board of Accountancy. So under the supervision of the PRC, the Professional Regulation Commission. So this is important because as a professional, we have what we call distinguishing marks. So this is what separate us from non-professionals or other individuals. So as professionals, we are expected to master a particular intellectual skill that we attain through our education and through our training. So for example, in our case, we are professional accountants and auditors. So that particular education or training that we have obtained, so through our years in the accountancy program, so taking the licensure examination and the compliance with the CPD or continuing professional development, so are our signs, no, or are what made us professionals. However, it's not only that, we also adhere to what we call a common code of values. So like for example, in our case, we have the code of ethics for professional accountants in the Philippines. So as professional, we are not only expected to be knowledgeable of a specific skill or knowledge, we also have to act ethically, adhere to common code of values. And finally, we accept a duty to society as a whole. So our services, in one way or another, would benefit the society or the public. So for the objectives of RA 9298, so this is our accountancy law, the Philippine Accountancy Act of 2004. So what is the coverage of our law? So number one is standardization and regulation of the accounting education. So our accountancy law covers even the education part or portion of our life as an accountant. And then the examination for registration of CPAs. So this is the LECPA or the licensure examination for CPAs. So before we are considered professional accountants here in the Philippines, so we have to take the licensure examination. It's a government exam administered by the PRC or the Professional Regulation Commission. And finally, not only up to board exam, but until we practice our profession. So supervision, control, and regulation of the practice of accountancy in the Philippines. So that is also part of the coverage of our law. Now, there are four sectors of accounting practice in the Philippines. So one is practice in public accountancy. So second is practice in commerce and industry. Third is practice in education or in the academe. And last one, practice in government. So we'll discuss each sector of practice of accountancy, starting with this one, practice in public accountancy. So when we practice, when an accountant or a CPA is engaged in the practice of public accountancy, so he or she will hold himself as one skilled in the knowledge, science, and practice of accounting, and as a qualified person to render professional services as a CPA. So if you're a CPA in public practice, you offer your services to your client or clients in exchange for professional fees. So in this case, you offer services such as audits and review of financial statements, so preparation, signing, certification of a report of audit and other documents, either for publication, credit purposes, or government filing. So you can also be consulted to design, install, and revise accounting system of your client, preparation of income tax return, and when you represent your clients on tax and accounting related matters before the offices of government agencies. Now, the distinguishing characteristic of practice in public accountancy is here, you do not work with one company alone. No? So it's possible that you have more than one clients. And usually your engagements, no, instead of being uh, covered by an employer-employee relationship, it will normally be covered by contracts, no, or engagement letter. So somehow it's project based. So that's how you work or how you operate, no, in public practice. So the next sector, we have practice in commerce and industry. So this is where the accountant is involved on decision making. So requiring the professional knowledge in the science of accounting as well as accounting aspect of finance, taxation. So when you represent your employer on tax and other matters related to accounting or tax, so that is also considered practice in commerce and industry. So earlier, there's a similar role in public practice, but where the accountant or professional accountant represent his or her client. So, but in this case, if what you are representing is your employer, then that is practice in commerce and industry. Or finally, those that where the employment or position requires that the holder must be a CPA is also considered practicing in commerce and industry. So in the last bullet point, so this is pertaining to the provision in the IRR, the implementing rules and regulation. So wherein that if a company has a paid up capital of at least 5 million or, so this is an or, annual revenue of at least 10 million, then it should be CPAs who should occupy position that involve, number one, supervising the recording of financial transaction, number two, preparation of financial statement, and number three, coordinating with external auditors and other related function. So meaning to say this function should be occupied by CPAs. So if a company fall under this category, so having at least paid up capital of 5 million or annual revenue of at least 10 million pesos. So either of these criteria, then CPA is required for this position. But this should not result in deprivation of employees incumbent to the position. So during the time that the law was approved, if there is a non-CPA holding this position, so it's not necessary or required for that non-CPA to be removed from his or her position. So this will be applied prospectively. So in the future, after the law has been applied or affected, so only CPAs should occupy this position. So the third sector of practice, so the one where we are part of, is practice in education or academe. So this is where a person is in an educational institution like a college or university, so which involve the teaching of accounting, auditing, management services, accounting aspect of finance, business law and taxation, which is now called regulatory framework for business transaction, and other technically related subjects. Now, the business law, or now called regulatory framework for business transaction and taxation, may be taught by CPAs and by lawyers, so who are members of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines. So, meaning to say, so lawyers, even if they are not CPA, can also teach business law subjects and taxation subject. And finally, supervisory or administrative position like dean or department chairman are also considered practicing in academe or education even if they are not teaching, no, even if they are not teaching accounting subjects. So last, we have practice in government. So practice in government are CPAs who hold or appointed to a position in an accounting professional group in government or in GOCCs or government owned and controlled corporation. And those CPAs perform proprietary function. So when you say proprietary function, So these are the functions or similar functions that are being done by CPAs in private companies, no? So, or in organizations that are not considered a government office or instrumentality. Okay, so because, for example, so let's say the CPA is in a government position but holding non-proprietary function. So let's say the CPA is a working as a mayor, for example. So in that case, that CPA is not considered practicing in government. So because in private companies, no, you cannot uh, have the position of a mayor of a town, no, or mayor of a city. So that is why if the CPA in government is working as a treasurer or a controller or budget officer, so the same function that a CPA would perform in a non-government office or private office, then that is considered proprietary function. And in that case, if the CPA in government is working in the treasury department of that government institution as auditor, as finance officer or budget officer, then that is a CPA practicing in government. And finally, where the civil service eligibility as a CPA is a prerequisite. Now, for example, let's say the BOA or the Department of Finance or the BIR or COA earlier, no? So what I mean is COA, Commission on Audit, or Department of Finance or BIR, no, opened a position in the government wherein one of the requirements is that the candidate is a CPA, then that is also considered practice in government. Okay? So take note that CPAs are exempted from civil service examination given by the Civil Service Commission. So by rule kasi, when you want to work for government, you need to take civil service examination. Okay? But if you are a CPA, no, qualified CPA, you pass the CPA board examination or the licensure examination for CPA, so you are no longer required to take the civil service examination before working for the government. So next section, we will discuss the Professional Regulatory Board of Accountancy or the PRBOA. So the PRBOA is the official government agency, so empowered to enforce our accountancy law, no, the RA 9298, under the administrative supervision of the PRC or the Professional Regulation Commission. So we will talk about their powers and the function. So that is why we will also discuss this BOA resolution. So the BOA resolution 88/2008, accreditation of accounting teachers, and BOA resolution 23-2010, rules and regulation and oversight on the quality of audit of practice. So again, as mentioned, PRBOA, the Professional Regulatory Board of Accountancy, or simply BOA, Board of Accountancy, is the official government agency, so tasked to enforce RA 9298 under the administrative supervision of the PRC. So that is why if asked, so who is or who are the government agencies who are empowered to administer or enforce RA 9298, so we have two answers, the Board of Accountancy and the PRC. So the Professional Regulation Commission and the Board of Accountancy. So our Board of Accountancy is comprised of 7 members, including a chairman, who are all appointed by the President of the Philippines. And as much as possible, so the 4 sectors of practice should be equitably represented in the Board of Accountancy. So meaning to say, so there should be a practitioner in public practice, commerce and industry, education and academe, and government. No? So among the members of our board. So here's the nomination and appointment process for Board of Accountancy members. So normally they are nominated by our accredited professional organization. So that's what we mean by APO, no, accredited professional organization. So in the Philippines, we only have one accredited professional organization, which is the PICPA, okay, or Philippine Institute of Certified Public Accountant. So the APO, so in PICPA, will submit 5 nominees with complete documentation to PRC, highlight, highlight not later than 60 days. So prior to the expiry of the term of any incumbent member or chairman. Now, in case the PICPA, the APO, fails to submit, the Professional Regulation Commission, PRC, in consultation with existing BOA members, shall submit to the President a list of 3 nominees for each vacant position. Now, in case the APO submits a nomination to PRC, so based on that list, the 5 nominees, the PRC shall, for each position, select 3 recommendees. So rank them and submit the list to the President. And then finally, it will be the President who will appoint the member of the Board of Accountancy based on the list of recommendees submitted by the PRC or the Professional Regulation Commission. So what are the qualifications to become member of the Board of Accountancy? So to become a member of the Board of Accountancy, one should be, first, a natural-born citizen and a resident of the Philippines. So if you are only naturalized, you elected your citizenship, not a natural-born citizen, then you cannot become a member of Board of Accountancy. Okay. However, you can become a CPA. So because in the CPA, the requirement is you should be a Filipino citizen. So whether natural-born or naturalized. Okay. But in case of BOA membership, so very clear, yung IRR, our IRR, should be natural-born citizen. Another requirement, good moral character. Registered CPA with highlight at least 10 years of work experience in any scope of accounting practice. So whether government, whether public practice, whether commerce and industry, whether academe. And you do not have any pecuniary interest in any school, university, college, or institution conferring an academic degree necessary for admission to practice accounting or where review classes are offered or held, nor shall be a member of faculty or administration at the time of his appointment to the BOA. So reason? Because our BOA members, they also sit as the examiner in the licensure examination for CPAs. No? So they are the one who prepare the exam for the board examination for CPAs. So therefore, they should not be part of any school, university, or review center. And then finally, so the BOA member should not be a director or officer of the accredited national professional organization at the time of appointment. So because remember, it's the APO who nominates, who nominates the possible member of Board of Accountancy. So there's a conflict of interest if they are part of the APO. So the term of office of a BOA chairman or member shall be for a period of 3 years. Now, any vacancy within the term of a member, suppose the BOA chairman or member was not able to complete the 3-year period term, shall be filled up for the unexpired portion of the term only. So if a member, for example, left his or her office within the 2-year period or after 2 years, so the replacement will fill up the remaining 1-year period only. But that appointment to fill up the unexpired term is not considered a complete term. So because this is important for the rule on reappointment. So because no person who has served 2 successive complete term shall be eligible for reappointment until the lapse of 1 year. So when a BOA member or chairman has been appointed for 2 complete terms, so he or she cannot be reappointed until the lapse of 1 year. So there is a 1-year period where that BOA member or chairman should not serve the board. So until he or she is eligible again for reappointment. But no person shall serve the board for more than 12 years. So this is the maximum period that a BOA member or chairman can serve the Board of Accountancy. So to illustrate, so let's say a BOA member has been appointed for an initial period of 3 years. So after 3 years, he or she will have already completed 1 complete term of a BOA chairmanship or membership. However, the President of the Philippines can reappoint that BOA chairman or member to serve for another term. So that would be another 3 years. And let's say the president will want to appoint also that same member or chairman. So this time the president cannot do that, so until the lapse of 1 year. So there should be a 1 year period where the BOA member or chairman will not serve the Board of Accountancy. Then after that, he or she is eligible again for reappointment for another term. And this time, he or she can also be reappointed once again. So because this is not considered two successive complete term because there is a 1 year interval where the member or chairman did not serve the Board of Accountancy. So therefore, the rule now will be reset with respect to the two successive complete term. So by this time, by the end of the third term, the BOA member or chairman can again be reappointed for another term for 3 years. However, this is already the maximum period because 3, 6, 9, and 12. So no person shall serve the BOA for a period of more than 12 years. So let's say another example. So there's a BOA or chairman who served the Board of Accountancy for 1 year, uh, and he or she left. No? So meaning to say, the BOA member or chairman was not able to complete the 3 year term. So in that case, a replacement was appointed. So, however, the replacement will only be able to fill the unexpired term, which is 2 years. And then that replacement can be reappointed for another term, so 3 years. So this is one complete term. And then that BOMA member or chairman can still be reappointed on the third time. Now, because the first appointment of that member or chairman is not completed or is not considered a complete term. So because he was appointed only to fill in an expired portion. So that is not considered a complete term. So this is not considered two successive complete terms. So therefore, the rule will not apply. He or she can be reappointed for another term, okay, for 3 years. Then after this, so that BOA member or chairman will already have two successive complete term. So there should be a 1 year period before he or she can be reappointed again. And then finally, if ever he or she gets reappointed after this, he can only serve for 1 year. So because the total should not exceed 12 years.